Hello everybody, here we are today and we have a video where I talk about 5 teams I want to see win the Stanley Cup, or I wouldn't mind seeing win the Stanley Cup going into this season. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So there's really only one rule here, and that is I can't pick either one of my 2 favorite teams, Vancouver Canucks and Columbus Blue Jackets. Kind of would be biased, and if I did that every year where I talked about teams I'd want to win, of course they'd be on there. So we're excluding them. There's still 30 teams to talk about. So what are these teams, and what's my thought process here? Well, the quick summary is they have to have somewhat realistic expectations, even if it's just to make the playoffs. I can't pick the Sharks and say I want them to win the Cup, because it really wouldn't be realistic. Some of these are pretty far-fetched, but still would be teams that I'd like to see. So kicking it off, we have the Buffalo Sabres. I feel like in the past year and a half especially, the Sabres have grown on me so much. Since I was, really like a teenager, the Sabres have not been a good team, one of the worst teams in the league, and there's not been a lot to be excited about. And then last year they ended up going out and being one of the most exciting teams in the league. They're youngest team in the league by average age, and are just shaping up to hopefully have a good stretch of play. They've got a lot of their guys locked up. Ended up doing a video yesterday, talking about the power extension and the Darlene extension. So many things seem to be going right for this team and for the fans. I know that they have to be really excited about it. The Sabres do feel like a bit of a long shot here, because there's no guarantee they even make the playoffs. But I think going forward, if some of these younger guys show up and they really are the real deal, like some of these younger guys that are already on the roster you are seeing maybe the Atlantic favorite in the coming years for the division, and with it possibly could come deep runs in the playoffs, and then maybe even winning their first Stanley Cup. They have not been to the Stanley Cup final since 1999. I was not even born yet, and then before that it was a couple of trips in the 70s. So for a lot of people, it's been 25 years almost, and it's been a long time for a market that, of course, is not a massive market in terms of attraction and stuff like that. So I just think for the Sabres, with them having this young, exciting team, it'd be really cool to see them go out there. They can outscore a lot of teams, and would just be a fun stretch for them, for the fans, and just for a little bit of fresh blood in the final. The second team is the Carolina Hurricanes. Kind of weird, because again, the Jackets being in their division, with them playing in the Metro, the Canes are probably going to bully on some of those bottom-feeding teams like the Jackets. But still, I will always say this. I've said it before in multiple videos. The Hurricanes will always have a special place in my heart, because they are the first team that I remember watching win the Stanley Cup and actually watching it live. So when I was a kid, the whole preschool year, I think it was, ended up the lockout not having a season. So the kindergarten year for me, going into the summer, that was the first season that I remember watching games, and I'm like 99% sure that I was with my dad watching these games, and we ended up watching the final game where they ended up beating Edmonton. So just to have that kind of nostalgia to where you're in kindergarten going into first grade, your first real season that you remember, and seeing that team, just one of those things that it's really cool to think back on. And my dad used to be a really big hockey fan, so to have that kind of memory and experience with him is a cool thing. And for the Hurricanes now, they have a really likable roster. They've got a lot of guys that are talented, maybe underrated. The market's underrated, but with Aho being there and some of these other guys, that they are committed to building something good. And since I've been alive, the Hurricanes were a team that, maybe they'd be good one year, but they weren't going to be good the next year. That's not really been the case in recent years. However, they just really haven't been able to crack through. They've been in 2 Eastern Conference final appearances in the past 5 years, not been able to make it to the Stanley Cup final. Brendan Moore there, and his legacy as a player and a coach, and the fact that he could probably go out there and get 20 goals or more in a season, considering the shape he's in now. It's just one of those situations where they have so many pieces to be likable. Hockey in the South, it would probably be good for them to win under the championship, because again, 2006 doesn't seem that far ago for me, but I'm getting close to be 25 years old. So there is a younger generation that has not seen the Canes be anything really special. And even for me, again, being 6 years old at the time when they would have won it, it's not something where I remember it in detail like somebody that probably would have been 15, 30, whatever the case may be. I really would like to see the Hurricanes at least win one with the group that they have, and if they don't, I do feel like it will be a shame, so I'm hoping this year will be the year. The third team will be the Dallas Stars. Dallas is a team that has got a lot of potential and been able to get to the Stanley Cup final in 2020, been able to get to the Western Conference final multiple times. And they are, again, a team that's fun. They've got a little bit of veterans that have played a pivotal role in the past decade for getting them on the right track. And they've got a lot of youngsters that are fun to watch. They've got great jerseys. The logo, I think, could be better. We're not going to get into that. We've done a video, I think, on that before about how I think the Stars really could improve their logo. But in general, hockey in the South, again, it's been a minute. The last time that they won the Stanley Cup was 1999. It's the only time they won the Stanley Cup because the next year, was it? They lost to the Devils, I believe. Yeah, 2000. So the Stars have been able to be there a couple times, but they weren't able to get it done. Kind of like Carolina, except a little bit better in the sense that they've been able to make it to the final. I don't think that they've been able to have the success so much over the span of 5 years that the Hurricanes have had, but in general, thinking back to those Dallas teams to when I was in high school and I was a teenager, they were probably going to be a good team, but they weren't going to get a whole lot done. But with Ben and Sagan and a lot of these guys on the roster, you'd like to see them get it. Some other guys that are a little bit older on the roster, they'd like to see get it with Robertson, Heiskanen, some of those other young guys as well. Wyatt Johnston expected to play a big role for this team. It would be cool for the Stars to end up getting their second championship because a lot of teams in the Western Conference, I'm not as excited to see them win the Stanley Cup. Dallas I'd be okay with, so we'll see if they're able to do it this season. Fourth team is a team that I've gotten messages about in good ways and bad ways, that being the New Jersey Devils. I've had the good messages, people being really nice and saying, I really appreciate what your opinion is on this. I think you do a great job with your channel. Love it. I had other people that say I am hyping up the Devils way too much. That's kind of like the medium range comments. Some other ones that I think they're just really big Devils haters, so I'm assuming they're probably Rangers, Islanders, some team in the Metro fans, whatever the case may be. So the Devils, I will just flat out say it. They are a team that, again, has ties to me and my family. So, like I've said before, my dad was huge Devils fans growing up, and Brodeur was somebody that he really liked to watch. So, my name was supposed to be Martin. Ended up not being because my mom said, no, we're not going to do that. But it's just one of those ties. And I go back and I watch some of those old games to where I know my dad probably would have been watching those games back in the day on YouTube. So, well, not him watching them on YouTube, but me watching them on YouTube. And now they are back to being a fun team. New Jersey really not been able to achieve a whole lot since I've been alive. I guess since I can have memory of it, they were able to achieve a lot while I was really young. But, really since 2013, what have they been able to achieve? Not a whole lot. Last year was their first playoff series win since the 2012 Stanley Cup final run that they were on. Marty, of course, has been into the league for a while, but this Devils side looked so fun last year. Again, like I said, Buffalo kind of reminds me of the Devils a little bit. Young, really exciting, and with the Devils, they've already proven that they are a top-tier team in the NHL. At least last season, they were able to prove it. We'll see if they're able to back it up this year. Both Hughes brothers are there. They're fun. Heischer's always been a guy that I've really liked to watch. Dougie Hamilton's there. They've just got a lot of pieces that you're really excited about, prospects, young guys, and I think could be a team that runs the Metro in a couple of years, maybe even this year. If Carolina ends up slipping a little bit, we will see. But the Devils haven't won a Stanley Cup final since 2003. So again, you're looking at it being over 20 years. I really think that this fan base could deserve another championship, but we're going to see if the Devils can have another big year. And then the final team does feel like a little bit of a stretch, but we have the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa is a team that has had some decent success, but not really a whole lot. Under the Eugene Melnyk tenure, things were not great in terms of how the club was run. I'm not really trying to dog on Eugene because he obviously has passed away, but it does seem like he was a businessman that put business first and wanted good results while also not spending a lot of money. So we're not going to really dive on into that. But in general, I think Senators fans have really had to go through it a lot. They are a team that's historic going back to the early 1900s, but again, they didn't play until the 90s after all that stuff went down. And with financially things being hard in the early 1900s, they ended up, not having a hockey team for years. So while they are historic, this version is not really seen as that team because there's such a big gap. Meanwhile, you've got other teams in Canada that have really long ties. You've got, Toronto, Montreal, to name a few of the original 6 that have such deep, rich hockey history. You, of course, have Vancouver, an old team. You've got the Oilers that have had a lot of success, the Flames that maybe they haven't had the success that the Oilers have had in Alberta, but they still had some moments. Ottawa, meanwhile, is kind of in that boat with Winnipeg where they're the new kids on the block, even though there are older versions of them. And I think for Ottawa, the biggest thing is they're sandwiched in between Toronto and Montreal. They're kind of right on the border with Quebec, if I'm not mistaken. So you're kind of dealing with 2 massive fan bases, 2 of the biggest fan bases in the NHL. And they have a lot to be excited about and a lot of history to look back at and say, oh, we really are happy with what we did here. Meanwhile, as a Senators fan, you're looking at your best season in terms of postseason success being 2007. 2017 will always live with them. Here they are now, though they do have a very fun team. A lot of these guys ended up exploding the past 2 years. You got Norris, you got Stützle that I talked about in my season previews. You've got a very fun roster here. Tarasenko, what is he going to do? Can he end up having a bounce back year? Claude Giroux, being a guy kind of near the Ottawa area. I think he grew up just outside Ottawa, ended up going there. He is somebody that I would like to see win a championship with the Senators. It'd be really cool. Just in general, I look at this roster, Chychrun as well. There's so many pieces to like about this team. And I feel for Senators fans because, again, when you're in between Toronto and Montreal, life probably is pretty difficult, and you would like to say, we have the most recent championship. You guys haven't won since 67. You guys haven't won since 93. We were able to get over the hump and seemingly come out of nowhere. Again, this one's kind of a long shot, and I'm aware that some of these that I mentioned here are more of the long shots. I really think Buffalo and Ottawa would be more so the long shots for this year, but in the coming years we'll see. But anyway, those are 5 NHL teams I would want to see win the Stanley Cup going into this season. Let me know 5 teams you wouldn't mind. Exclude your favorite teams and all that good stuff. Anyway, everybody, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go off all alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.